Well, Tyler, here we are again.
Is this phase one where Doris gets her oats?
It's close to it.
You cracked me up with that.
Yeah, of course, we just got done listening to the Beatles, Two of Us, and Tyler liked the beginning of that song.
I do it.
But today we're actually going to be doing a Led Zeppelin song. And why don't you explain what's going on, Tyler?
So Justin and I have decided to do what we're going to call classic vinyl singles. These are shorter episodes where we don't do a full album, but we just review either a one-hit wonder, and we do that one hit that they had, or we do a single that was released not necessarily on an album. Just these are going to be shorter episodes where we review a single song, and we'll give you some background and do what we normally do that you come to love from listening to Classic Vinyl Podcast. We hope that you enjoy them.
Let's get to it. Today we're going to actually do a Led Zeppelin song called Hey, Hey, What Can I Do? But let me give a little history on Led Zeppelin real quick. Of course, Led Zeppelin, world-famous rock and roll band, formed in London in 1968. They consist of vocalist Robert Plant, guitarist Jimmy Page, bass John Paul Jones, and drummer John Bonham. This band is definitely heavy guitar rock, innovators of hard rock and heavy metal without a doubt. Mm-hmm. Certainly, I know we referred to them in our other Led Zeppelin episodes as kind of the Beatles of the 70s, and they certainly were. They certainly carried the torch on rock and roll music through the 70s. The band's name was originally the New Yardbirds after Jimmy Page had left the Yardbirds, and of course the Yardbirds famously had Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, and many others in the band. But they soon changed their name to Led Zeppelin. And Led Zeppelin 2 was their first number one album. Led Zeppelin 4, their best-selling album at 37 million copies.
Is that the one where she's buying a Stairway to Heaven?
Well, and that's what I was going to get to next. Yes, of course, Led Zeppelin 4 famously features Stairway to Heaven. I mean, I don't think it's disputed at all that it's their most popular song, and if not, possibly one of the most popular rock and roll songs of all time.
Certainly. If you want to dispute that, bring it. Go ahead. Send us an email. Reach out to us. Tell us why there's another song out there by Led Zeppelin that's more popular than Stairway to Heaven.
Well, and there's songs I like more, but I think, you know, when we talk about ear burn and things like that, you get over songs. I certainly suffer it heavily on Stairway to Heaven at this point. But absolutely love the song. Mm-hmm. In Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page was the main music writer, and Robert Plant wrote most of the lyrics. That total record sales are upwards of 300 million worldwide, which isn't bad.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, they were inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1995, and John Paul Jones found John Bonham dead in October of 1980, which basically ended Led Zeppelin. Page and Plant toured a little bit after that. They did, Led Zeppelin got back together and did a couple shows, the O2 Arena in the early 2000s, but that was pretty much the end of Led Zeppelin. When they did get back together for a reunion, Jason Bonham, John Bonham's son, actually filled in on drums. Oh. I mean, I would say they're the most influential heavy rock band of all time. I don't think that should be disputed at all. They've released 8 studio albums along with Coda, a compilation of session tracks, multiple reissues in 2007 and box sets and things like that. I mean, certainly a band I think everyone knows about, and even if you're not into rock and roll, you've heard about Led Zeppelin.
In fact, this song that we're going to do is one of their, let's see, it's kind of been glossed over. I don't even think it's on Coda. This song was released as a single, but wasn't released as part of an album until they started to do the compilations.
Yeah, correct. So let's get to the song. So Led Zeppelin, Hey, Hey, What Can I Do? It was actually the B-side of the Immigrant Song in the United States. It was released on November 5th of 1970, but it kind of went unnoticed in a lot of ways. It was actually released in the UK on an Atlantic Records sampler, but it's the band's only non-album single ever. You got bands like the Beatles and the Stones, and especially a lot of UK artists that released a lot of singles that didn't make it the album. They released the singles to promote the album, but that's not something that Led Zeppelin did. Hey, Hey, What Can I Do actually showed up on the Led Zeppelin box set in 1990. It was that 4-disc box set that it showed up on, and really what happened was people started hearing it, and radio stations got bombarded with phone calls to play this, and it's been a staple on rock and roll radio ever since.
If you're into classic rock, and if you're listening to this podcast, we're going to assume that you are. You've heard this song. You know this song. But it's kind of funny to hear its history in that prior to 1990, this song kind of fell by the wayside a little bit.
Yeah, and what's kind of interesting about the song is it doesn't have the typical Led Zeppelin sound to it in a lot of ways, but
it's a lot less flashy, rock and roll, a lot more basic, like acoustic guitar. There's a banjo in it, tambourine, the percussion in it. I think, the bass is electric, but other than that, you can't really tell if anything else is electric in this.
Yeah, so it was recorded around the time of Led Zeppelin 3, and for whatever reason, they didn't include it on that album. In 2007, when Jimmy Page remixed all the albums, it was included on Led Zeppelin 3 as a bonus track. So the track is credited the whole band, like all Led Zeppelin songs, and of course, Plant wrote the lyrics. Jimmy Page wrote the music. It's a really interesting song. It's basically about a lady that's wild and crazy. Now, she could be a drug addict, a drunk, possibly some kind of addicted prostitute. It's really hard to say.
Nymphomaniac.
Yeah, I mean, you decipher the lyrics for yourself. She was certainly a promiscuous drinking lady, if that's what you want to call her. Now, this song was never played live by Led Zeppelin ever. And I mean, I think that's the reason why it just kind of largely went unnoticed. I kind of see it as a guy falling in love with a prostitute or a hooker, or at very least a very promiscuous woman. What are your thoughts on Hey, what can I do?
That's a very good assessment. This guy that Robert Plant is, shall we say, playing the role of, he's got his hands full with this one. She is all over the place, and he even talks about taking her to church and giving the men a reason to pray.
I wrote that down too. The men at church do come to church to pray to the good Lord above. But guess what? I think there's only one reason they're there.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so this guy, he's having a good time, but he's, apart from the good time, he's also getting wore out. He's getting tired because he's having to keep up with this girl, and this girl is just all about the party all the time. Let's see. One thing that I did, I checked out the cover art. Cover art's pretty basic. It's a cream background with the Immigrant Song in brown lettering up top, and then the band members just beneath that in black.
You're talking the cover art of the original U.S. single release, yeah.
Exactly. So, it's a nice cover, but as far as the song goes, it's very basic instruments. They've got, it sounds like the acoustic guitar. I'm not sure if it's an electric that's tuned down to sound like an acoustic, but it could be. Very prominent tambourine in it, along with the drums. The bass line's very strong in this song. And then towards the end, you really start to see this banjo, and then the banjo plays out at the end as it trails out. Really cool the way that they did this with the music. As far as the lyrics go, I can see why this didn't get a lot of radio play when it was first released.
Well, especially in the 70s, early 70s, yeah. I mean, I've got a woman want to ball all day. I've got a woman stay drunk all the time. I mean, he refers to her as the street corner girl, which that's kind of where you get the prostitute thing in. I don't think you could easily call any woman a street corner girl without getting smacked upside the head. I
really enjoyed this song, and I'm glad to see that this song's getting more appreciation that it deserves. A lot more radio play nowadays. You're hearing it. It's a good one to listen to. I'm glad that it's had a comeback, a second life even. What did you think about this one?
Well, I do love the acoustic intro on this, and the one thing is it does have good bass throughout. It's not super prominent, but it's good for the acoustic in it. The one thing is, you said this song's kind of simple, but the other side of that coin is that there's a lot going on in this song.
Yeah, I mean, the instruments are simple. The way that they're played is not.
Yeah, it seems like it almost has this overwhelming feeling of multiple acoustic guitars playing and layered on top of each other. And I don't know if there were multiple players on it or if they overdubbed them or how it was mixed, but there is a lot going on. The drums don't really stick out as anything special on this. And of course, this is Led Zeppelin with the world's second best drummer of all time next to Keith Moon. I kid the Led Zeppelin lovers because keep in mind I'm a Led Zeppelin lover as well, but I do love me some Keith Moon and do still think he's the best drummer of all time, and John Bonham right there with him. Let's be honest, they're kind of peas in a pod, right? There's not a lot of heavy guitar, which you usually hear in a lot of Led Zeppelin because it's just straight acoustic, but with a lot going on, it's still pretty good. I think it could have been a little simpler, not mixed so heavy with so many guitars in it, but it does sound good. It should have been on an album. It should have been an A-side single without a doubt. Sure. I like this song, with it being the B-side to Immigrant Song. I like this song better than Immigrant Song myself.
Yeah. One thing about that, the instruments, it sounds like a huge band. That also strikes into my mind that little factoid. I don't know if we mentioned it. The band never played this live, did they?
No, I did mention that.
You
yeah.
did mention that. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, it brings me into memory that the band never played this live. I wonder if it's because it's so heavily mixed that they had so many different tracks of people playing. So they had like 5 tracks of just acoustic guitar.
Yeah, that's a good point. That could be it.
And I think if it had been electric, if you had more amplification in there, it would have become messy. So I really appreciate what the band did with it. And I have to think it's intentional that it sounded so acoustic and clear.
Apparently, in doing some research on it, even though Led Zeppelin never played it live, Page and Plant, when they were touring together in the mid-90s or something, did play it live.
That's good.
So it was played live. But do you want to get to the song rating?
Yep.
Okay, Tyler. Hey, what can I do? What do you think?
Hey, what can I do? I'm going to have to rate this one on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being a dud and 10 being a work of art, total masterpiece. I pull this one in at a solid 8. I think this song has so much to appreciate about it. I love that it's been resurrected, had a revival, and came back and had a very successful second life, and so I stand behind that, giving it a solid 8. I might have even given it higher, but it's not necessarily my favorite, so I'm not going to go out and buy it. But I really enjoy listening to this song. It doesn't have that ear burn that you get from overplaying on the radio. It's one of those songs that's just right. What do you think about this, and where do you rate it?
Well, from the very first time I heard this song in the early 90s, I've really enjoyed it. You kind of made that statement that you don't get the ear burn. I kind of do a little bit on it, and maybe that's because I've heard it so many times now. But I really enjoy the song. I'd probably be a little higher, but today I'm rating this song a 7. It's a very solid song. Definitely a hidden gem in the Led Zeppelin catalog. The fact that it made it 20 extra years before it was really noticed whatsoever is pretty amazing, honestly. But it's a good song, and if you're into certain Led Zeppelin and you haven't heard it, go check out Hey, What Can I Do? Because it is a great song.
Oh, absolutely. And I've had a great time doing this song with our short singles. I'm glad that we got to give it a little bit, to learn about the story of this song, because there is a really cool story behind it. And I like learning about that.
Well, that's it for Hey, What Can I Do by Led Zeppelin. And this is Justin and Tyler from Classic Vinyl Podcast. And until next time, we'll see you later.
See you. Thank you so much for listening to Classic Vinyl Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Classic Vinyl Podcast for updates, and also share us with your music-loving friends.